The company you just sold, I already own it. That's what I told my dad after he humiliated me at Thanksgiving dinner again. But this time I didn't cry. I didn't storm off. I smiled, because I had planned this moment for 10 years. While my brother was partying on yachts and my sister was live streaming her way through brunches, I built an empire in secret. And now, the business they thought I was too emotional, too idealistic, too female to run belongs to me. And I made sure they found out over turkey and pecan pie. I hadn't been home in almost 2 years. Not since the Christmas dinner when Dad toasted my brother Blake for 10 years of unwavering loyalty to the family business, while I sat there quietly having just raised $25 million in Series B funding. Nobody noticed, but this year I came back with a purpose, a secret I had nursed for 10 years, and it was almost ready to hatch. I stepped out of the black car heels clicking against the stone driveway, taking in the Pierce estate, all colonial elegance, snowy hedges, and money. Old money. Dad's pride, Mom's cage. The front door swung open before I could even knock. Rachel, darling. Mom's voice sang out like it was rehearsed. You look expensive. Hi, Mom. I leaned in and kissed her cheek. She smelled like Pinot Grigio and Chanel No. 5. Her eyes flicked down to my handbag. Is that a Bottega? I smiled faintly. I've done okay. Inside the house looked exactly the same, too much mahogany, too many portraits of men in suits. The smell of roasted cinnamon and expensive furniture polish hit me like memory whiplash. I'll show you to your room, she said, already halfway up the stairs. We've kept it just how you left it. Your trophies are still on the shelf. How comforting. Later, I wandered into the living room where Blake was swirling scotch in a crystal glass like he owned the world. He looked up and smirked. Well, well, Silicon Valley graces us with her presence. Still pretending to run things, I see. I shot back. He raised his glass. I run what matters. Sure, I said, as long as what matters is yachts and offshore accounts. He froze for a second, then laughed. You always were dramatic. Just then, Hailey burst in with her phone angled high. Family reunion time. Say hi to the followers. I dodged the camera. She's always shy, Hailey pouted, flipping her curls. Hey, who styled you? That dress is fire. San Francisco stylists, I said simply. Rich boyfriend, she teased. Nope, just working. Oh, that's boring. She moved on. I caught my reflection in the mirror behind Blake. I didn't look like the girl who used to cry in this house. I looked like someone who knew things and who could burn it all down. And I might. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. And my father was planning to make an announcement. He had no idea he'd be upstaged. I wasn't here for closure. I was here for exposure. Let the games begin. That evening, Mom hosted her usual Thanksgiving Eve cocktail reception, a ridiculous, overly formal tradition where half the guests were country club friends I barely recognized, and the other half were people Dad was either trying to impress or intimidate. I made my entrance fashionably late, dressed in a black Stella McCartney suit that hugged in all the right places. Subtle, sharp, and impossible to ignore. The moment I walked into the ballroom, heads turned, conversations faltered, even the chandelier seemed to blink. Rachel asked Mr. Lambert, Dad's old business partner, Well, you've grown up. I smiled, extending a firm handshake. I guess I had to. Dad spotted me from across the room. His expression flickered surprise, then confusion, then that familiar tight-lipped neutrality. The one he used in board meetings? He walked over, scotch in hand. You made it. I said I would. He looked at my suit like it offended him. You're dressed like a banker. I tilted my head. Funny. You always said I didn't dress professionally enough. He blinked, then moved on. Blake and Hailey were already working the room like minor royals. Blake bragged about a huge contract win, which I knew from the numbers had actually fallen through last quarter. Hailey posed near the fireplace, having photos taken by a photographer she hired herself. I stayed close to the bar, sipping sparkling water, watching the illusion unfold. Then Blake cornered me near the hors d'oeuvres. So he said, eyeing my drink, still pretending to be too busy to share what you actually do in California. I work. I replied, build, innovate. He chuckled. You always talked like that. Big words. You sound like one of those TED Talk robots. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Tell me, Blake, do you remember Christmas 4 years ago? He frowned. What about it? I told Dad we should pivot to SaaS integration. You laughed, said I didn't understand enterprise architecture. Blake shrugged. And 3 months later, you pitched the same idea as your own. Got a bonus for it. His face hardened. Are you really still bitter about that? No, I said. I'm motivated by it. He scoffed. Motivated enough to show up once every few years and play mysterious? I'm not playing, I said quietly. I'm winning. He stared at me, jaw tight. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, guilt. No fear. You know, I added, it's not hard to trace financial records if you know what to look for. His glass stopped midair. Enjoy your scotch, Blake. I walked away before he could respond. At that moment, Tori texted me from San Francisco. Still breathing. I typed back, barely. But tomorrow I breathe fire, because this wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was a war. And I'd already won, they just didn't know it yet. Thanksgiving dinner looked like something out of a magazine. Crystal glasses, gold-rimmed china, a 25-pound turkey. Dad insisted on carving himself like he was passing down some ancient ritual. But it was all a performance. We sat in our traditional arrangement, of course. Dad at the head of the table, Blake to his right, Hailey to his left, Mom at the far end, and me, next to the help practically. Some things never change. Still, I smiled politely, sipped my wine, and waited. The conversation swirled around me. Blake droned on about yacht financing. Hailey gave a play-by-play of her recent skincare brand trip to Aspen. Dad checked his phone every 3 minutes like the president might call. I caught Mom watching him, her smile brittle. She knew something was coming too. Then came the tradition, the gratitude toast. Blake went first. I'm thankful for our incredible team at Peer Solutions and for my beautiful girlfriend, Kelsey. He raised his glass, beaming like he'd just invented oxygen. Hailey followed. I'm thankful for hitting 1 million followers and for continuing to represent the Pierce name with class and relevance. I nearly choked on my drink. When it was my turn, I set my fork down slowly. I'm thankful, I said, for rejection. That got their attention. For being told no so many times I had to build my own path. I'm thankful for long nights cold ramen and every ignored phone call that taught me to depend on myself. I smiled, locking eyes with Dad. And I'm deeply thankful for second chances. Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat and stood. I have an announcement, he said, tapping his knife against his glass. Something I've been working on privately. Mom flinched. Blake straightened. Hailey grabbed her phone to film. I've decided to sell Pierce Solutions. Blake choked on his wine. What he barked. You can't be serious. It's been finalized, Dad continued, unfazed. We sign tomorrow. The buyer is offering $50 million. It's the right time. Hailey's phone trembled. But I'm a Pierce heiress. What happens to my brand? Dad raised a hand. That brings me to the second part. The proceeds will go to our retirement and a new charitable foundation. Nothing will be inherited directly. Blake slammed his glass down. That's our birthright, Dad. Hailey burst into tears, perfectly angled for her live stream. I didn't flinch. I took a bite of pecan pie. Slow, calm. Mom looked at me sharply. You don't seem surprised, Rachel. I folded my napkin. Because I'm not. Blake stopped yelling. Hailey lowered her phone. Dad narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? I met his gaze squarely. I just have one question. Who's the buyer? He smiled smug. An investment firm out of San Francisco, Everest Holdings, very sharp, apparently run by some reclusive genius. I raised my glass. Let it hover in the air. That's me. The room froze. Forks paused mid-air. Breaths stopped. The only sound was the grandfather clock ticking like a countdown to war. Dad's face paled. I am Everest Holdings, I said, and I just bought our family business. Silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. Dad blinked once. Then again. What did you just say? I leaned forward, voice steady. I'm Everest Holdings. I own the company now. Blake was the first to react violently. He shot up, knocking over his wine. You're lying. No, I said calmly. I've spent the past year acquiring all the supplier and client companies Peer Solutions depends on. You've been dealing with me this entire time, just didn't know it. Hailey's mouth hung open. Wait. You're saying you bought the company? I nodded. Dad's face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen since he once yelled at me for daring to suggest we hire female engineers. This is absurd, he growled. Everest Holdings is run by someone named M.E. Stone. Morgan Elizabeth Stone, I said. M.E. Stone. It's me. I used a pseudonym for a decade, for obvious reasons. Blake looked like he might explode. You've been spying on us. That's corporate espionage. It's called market research, Blake, I replied. Try Googling it. Hailey clutched her phone like a lifeline. Oh my God, I'm streaming this. My followers think I'm on a reality show. Mom finally spoke softly. All this time, we thought you were struggling. I needed you to think that, I said. It was easier when no one took me seriously. Dad slammed both hands on the table. You had a choice, Rachel. You could have been part of the company. You chose to leave. I stood up slowly. No, Dad. You chose. The day you cut me off mid-pitch at the boardroom humiliated me and called my ideas academic fantasy. That's when I left. That's when I realized you'd never see me as anything but your disappointment. He stared at me, and I saw something fracture behind his eyes. Garrett, no Blake looked between us livid. So what you did this to humiliate us? No. I did it to save what you were destroying, I said. You ran this company into the ground with outdated systems and zero innovation. I gave you a chance to partner 6 months ago. You rejected the offer because it wasn't yours. Dad's voice dropped to a whisper. The Phoenix proposal. That was you. I nodded. I tried to help you quietly. You said no, so I stopped asking. Mom looked at me glassy-eyed. How long have you been planning this? 10 years, I said. Since the day I walked out of this house with a degree in one hand and nothing in the other. Hailey wiped tears carefully so her mascara wouldn't smear. So what happens to us now? That depends, I replied. Are you ready to work for what you thought you were owed? Dad stood fists clenched. You can't have it both ways, Rachel. You can't be my daughter and my rival. My voice didn't shake. That's where you're wrong. I've always been both. You just never looked close enough. I didn't sleep that night. Too much adrenaline. Too many ghosts. From my childhood bedroom still preserved like a shrine to a daughter no one ever understood, I could hear the chaos downstairs. Dad yelling into the phone, Blake slamming doors, Hailey sobbing. Softly, but probably still live streaming it. I sat at my old desk, fingers brushing the spine of a journal from my MIT days. Inside were the early sketches for the cloud platform Dad had once called unrealistic. That sketch was now worth $200 million. A knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Blake. He barged in without waiting. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie loosened rage barely contained. You planned this, he hissed, pacing like a lion. You waited until we were all here just to ruin us. I folded my arms. I planned to buy the company, Blake, not ruin anyone. You did that yourself. His head snapped toward me. You think you're better than us now, just because you got lucky with a few deals? No, I said, standing. Not lucky, prepared, strategic, patient, and let's not pretend you've been innocent. His face hardened. What the hell does that mean? It means I know about the money, I said. The phantom vendor accounts, the consulting fees to a Cayman account, $300,000 missing. He froze. I kept going. I have IP logs, transaction trails. You used your office computer on days no one else was in the building. You can't prove I can, I said coldly. But I won't press charges. Yet. He stared at me, color draining from his face. Why? Because I care more about fixing the company than punishing you. But if you make this harder, I will go public. You destroy your own brother, I'd hold a thief accountable who just happens to share my DNA. His fist's clenched jaw twitching, but he said nothing, just stormed out. A few minutes later, another knock. It was Hailey. She walked in like she owned the place, though her makeup was smeared and her phone was thankfully off. So she said, sitting on my bed, "You're like a secret billionaire." "Millionaire," I corrected. "Let's not exaggerate." She tilted her head. "It's kind of badass." I blinked. "Weren't you crying about your brand identity an hour ago?" She shrugged. "I'm flexible. Influencer Survival 101. I rolled my eyes. She leaned forward. "Okay, hear me out. You need public support. I need a storyline. Sister turned CEO. Come on. The internet would love it. You want a media deal, I asked? Now. Not a deal. A partnership," she said sweetly. "I make you relatable. You make me legit." I stared at her. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part paused. She was good at what she did, even if it wasn't what I respected. "I'll think about it," I said. Her face lit up like I'd offered her a throne. Then she was gone. Finally, the last knock. It was Mom. No wine glass, no makeup, just her. She sat on the window seat where she used to read to me when I was 5. "I should have stood up for you," she said. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but I was just afraid. I didn't know what to say. "I saw you," she whispered. "Even if I didn't act like it, I saw you." The next morning, the house felt hollow. No scent of coffee, no echo of voices, just quiet, the kind that buzzed in your ears. At 7 a.m., Maria, our housekeeper, silently handed me a cup of coffee with a look I couldn't quite name. Respect, pity, relief. Then I heard it, that deep, clipped voice from behind me, my study. "Now." I turned. Dad stood in the doorway, rumpled, pale, shoulders lower than I'd ever seen them. I followed him into the study. The place still smelled like cigars and stubbornness. He took his usual seat behind the desk, expecting me to sit across from him like a subordinate. I didn't. I sat on the edge of the desk itself. Eye level, power shift. He noticed, said nothing. My attorneys confirmed everything, he started, voice flat. "The sale is final. The board approved it. It's done." "Yes," I said, "it is." He looked down at the paperwork. "You really offered $50 million. It was generous," I replied. "Most buyers would have stripped the assets and killed the name." He looked up sharply. "And is that what you plan to do?" "No," I said. "The Pierce name stays for now. But the leadership, the structure, the vision, all of that changes." He stared at me. Then, softer, almost whispering, "How did you do it?" I blinked. "Excuse me." "All of it," he said. "With no help, no capital, no family connections." I inhaled. I had my degree. I had hunger. I had you not believing in me. That landed. He closed his eyes briefly, like it hurt. "I thought I was protecting you." "No," I said. "You were controlling me. And when I didn't obey, you erased me." He flinched. "I built this company from nothing. And I built something better from less than nothing." A beat. He stood and walked to the window. "What happens to me now, you'll stay on as chairman emeritus," I said. "Advisory only. No authority. No veto power." He turned to face me. "A figurehead, a respected advisor." I corrected. "Or you can walk away. Your choice." He didn't respond. So I added, "Blake, however, won't get a choice. Either he quietly resigns and repays what he stole, or we go public." Dad's face changed. "You're bluffing." I slid a folder across the desk. Audit trail, account numbers, IP logs. "I'm not bluffing." He flipped through it, hands shaking. "How did I miss this?" he whispered. "You were looking in the wrong direction," I said. "Always have." He sat back down slowly. A long silence. Then the question I never thought I'd hear. "What happens next?" I blinked. "You mean, for the company?" He shook his head. For us. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said the truth. That depends, Dad, on whether you're ready to see me finally as more than just your daughter. He looked at me, and for the first time in my life didn't look through me. He looked at me. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated lobby of what used to be Pierce Solutions, now Pierce Everest Technologies. The same plaque still hung by the elevator, the family name etched in brass, but next to it a new one glinted under soft light: CEO Rachel M. Pierce. I stared at it for a moment, not out of pride, out of disbelief that it had taken this long to be seen. The transition hadn't been easy. Blake resigned quietly, repaid what he could. I didn't press charges, not for his sake, but for the company's. Last I heard, he enrolled in an MBA program in Chicago. For the first time in his life, he was actually trying. Hailey flourished. Her rebrand as the tech heiress exploded. She became the face of our Consumer Tech Partnerships podcast, interviews, curated TikToks. It was cringy at first, but effective. Our public image had never looked better. She even started listening in meetings. A little. And Mom changed the most. She started mentoring young women through a nonprofit that supports first-gen female entrepreneurs. I want to help other girls like you, she told me one evening. So their mothers don't stay quiet like I did. That almost broke me. And Dad, surprisingly, steady. He stepped into his chairman emeritus role with something close to grace. He still had opinions loudly, but now he asked before giving them. We set a recurring meeting, Fridays 8:30 a.m., sharp. He never missed one. Last week, after we reviewed our second quarter numbers record-breaking again, he looked up at me and said, "You've already done more in 1 year than I did in 5. It wasn't approval. It was respect. That meant more." I walked through the office heels soft against polished wood floors. People smiled as I passed. Some nodded, some stood. I wasn't Morgan Stone anymore, or the middle child. I was just Rachel. Rachel, the CEO, the daughter who left, the woman who came back on her own terms. As I stepped into the conference room, Tori was already there, setting up her laptop. "You look smug," she teased. "Just prepared," I replied. She smiled. "Thanksgiving's next week." I nodded. This year, there'd be no dramatic announcements, no toast full of omission, just dinner, quiet, real, and maybe even warm. Maybe. Because healing is a process. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. But it starts with a single thing: being seen. And now I finally was. I always thought proving myself meant winning, beating the odds, building something bigger than what they thought I was capable of. And for a while, that was enough. But standing in that boardroom as the CEO of the very company that once erased me, I realized something deeper. What I truly wanted wasn't control. It was to be seen, to be heard, not as the daughter or the one who left or the one with crazy ideas. Just as me, Rachel, I got my revenge, yes. But what mattered more was that for the first time they listened. And maybe that's what real power is: not proving someone wrong, but being able to show up in your truth and not shrink. So now I ask you, what would you do if your family told you you'd never be enough and then needed you to save them? Would you walk away, or would you walk back in on your terms? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe if this story hit home. Because you're not alone, and maybe, just maybe, your quiet revenge is already in motion.